Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions. Now, we are going through the genre of shoegaze and been exploring what the genre is, and I've been trying to learn along the way with the help of all of you and your comments. Now, so far, I think we've had a really good showcasing of the variety of this genre, having one of the earlier examples of shoegaze yesterday, as well as a dreamier example and a more aggressive, noisier example that kicked off the week with Monday and Tuesday. So far, though, I think we're going to be looking at probably the latest song in shoegaze for the entire week. This is a 2024 track. I doubt we're going to top this tomorrow. We're going to be looking at something from the band Robounoishi. And that loosely translates to roadside stone, but being that it's the artist name, I don't know if a translation is necessarily what they're going for. We're going to look at a song called Suicide Snowcide, which is, that's a title. Let's dive in, see what's going on. Okay, a little bit on the noisier side with this one. Definitely fits the wall of sound though. Lots of layers and textures to the guitar, but the bass and drum are clear. Is that a reverb-drenched crash cymbal? Splash cymbal? Sort of quick attack over here. That slight pitch increase. Is there a melody inside of the fuzz? There it is. Okay, that was in the mix really hard. I like the longer held out vocal parts on top of the 16th note picked guitar parts. It's really nice contrast there. there's actually a dyad, though. Even though the guitar is playing so many notes, there's still places where you can hear the... Oh, sorry. And you can hear the pitch changing. And they're actually changing their pitch at the same time the vocals were. Just instead of holding the note out, they're continuously playing that note over and over and over. Yeah, so I kind of like that. Shoegaze is a genre that I don't think I've heard too much that would immediately grab me, where I want to listen to more. But this is getting there. I kind of want to check out more of this group, particularly because despite the grittiness, despite the wall of sound, despite the 16th note picking, all of these really aggressive elements to it, and just the layers of fuzz and noise and compression and overdrive and crackle and white noise in the guitars, it sort of retains the opposite of that dreamier part. And I think that's what's really speaking to me on this one, is that it is a mishmash of both of these. Where I think Yesterday did a great job of capturing the more ethereal, beautiful segment with something a bit more gritty and darker, it did so in a much older style. I likened Yesterday's track from Kitchen something or another, Kitchens of Distinction. I likened it to New Wave. And it does really remind me of New Wave for some reason. But this, I think, pulls the dreamier side and the more texture-based, gritty side and just smashes them together and forces them to coexist rather than trying to work around them. This is a song that just simultaneously gives you some really gorgeous harmonic work on top of some really gritty guitar sounds. And I don't know that it always works. The production on this is a bit rough for me, and the noise of our right guitar overshadows everything. I was going to say there are X amount of, I don't remember how many times it happened though. But I just remember thinking, oh, did you guys hear this sound? Did you hear this cymbal? Is that another guitar in there? Like, it feels like the early days of black metal for me, where I just can't hear what's going on. There's too much stuffed into the mix. And that would be, I think, a hurdle for me getting into this project. Compositionally, atmospherically, I'm on board. But the fact that I'm always second guessing if I'm actually hearing something would get on my nerves quickly. But it may be a positive element of this. It may be why people come to this project in particular, much like people go to low fidelity black metal exclusively for that inability to really make out the details. It's that gritty rawness that draws people to it. And this certainly has a raw production to it, for better or worse. And I think I kind of want to start there. We have the chords from our right guitar, and they're less chords and single notes. Then we have the chords from the left guitar, which is kind of tucked in the mix, and the root tones from our bass guitar. And this is giving us a lot of the harmonic information for this track. There is so much optimism bleeding out of this. It is a song that constantly feels like it is looking towards a better future despite the grit of the now. And I love that vibe, especially when you bring the vocals into the mix too. There's a positivity to them. There's a brightness in their timbre and the character of their tone. But there's also, again, it's because of these long held out notes that contrast the quick playing, the quick strumming on our right guitar over there. It's about a calmness that we don't really get in all of that noise and grit. It's a calm optimism despite the chaotic grittiness of the now. And that combination right there just really speaks to me. And it's something that you're not really going to as easily or as effectively find in music that chooses to go for either pure beauty or pure grittiness and noise. It's something that really works when you bring the two together. And I think it's the thing about this track that really stands out to me. Granted, I can't always hear it, and the song sometimes just feels a little noisy to me. When it does click and I just lock into that emotion, I love it. It's just working with me right now, you know? Sometimes you hear music that bounces off of you, and you just got to be in the right mindset, the right place in your life to really connect with it. And other times, you are in that right place, and the first time you hear something, you're just locked in on it. And that's what I am with this. For whatever reason, I needed the sound right now, and I'm really digging it. And a lot of it comes down to that hopeful optimism and mid-fi gritty production and the ways that they come together. Now, the rest of the song, though, I don't think there's a lot to dive into here. The vocal melodies follow along with the guitar line. As I mentioned, despite the guitar playing 16 times every bar, a majority of that is all the same note. You might get some passing tones on the last 2 to 4 picks out of the 16, but you're just generally holding on to this one note, then you move to the next note, and the guitarist moves with the chord progression. The vocalist also moves in this fashion. I really picked up on this in the chorus when it dawned on me that the vocals were basically doing dyads or 2-note harmonies, 2-note chords with the guitars. That they were moving at the exact same time, granted, in different directions, on different pitches. And this is a lot of what's giving the harmonic and emotional progression through the chorus, which is a very cool idea, but it's the same melody. The bass is giving us root tones to this chord progression, so that's falling in line with everything else. The drums are, aside from a couple of nice fills, very straightforward, fundamental indie rock, gotta keep the metronome style tempo going, and that's about it. A little bit of syncopation, but mostly locking in the core beat. And that's how a vast majority of this song is written. Your chord, your melody, which follows along with the chord progression, and root tones, which are harmonic instrumentation, and then a simple beat. So a majority of this song comes down to atmosphere, and the atmosphere doesn't really change either. It's noise, it's grit, it's static, it's compression, and then a nice little beat out of your bass and drum, and the guitar that you can't hear. That's giving some melodic movement. But it does make me wonder what I missed in here. So many times I asked, is that something? And one of those times, at least, the whole band quit so I could make out that one thing I heard, which was when the left guitar got to play by itself and I actually got to hear part of that semi-melodic movement going on there. So this is an atmosphere song over anything else, and we've touched on the atmosphere, touched on the emotion, and we've touched on what all the instruments are doing. It's a bit on the shorter side, but that's going to wrap this one up, I think. If you have anything else you'd like to add to this, sure, throw it in the comments, and maybe you heard something I didn't. That's very likely. But for now in the video, I'm going to hit some lyrics and see how we can tie all of this together. All right. On the one hand, well, I suppose there's two surprises here. On the one hand, this is featuring Hatsune Miku. How did I not know that? Maybe it's because every time we've listened to a Vocaloid track with Hatsuna on vocals, it's really quick, obviously Vocaloid stuff. This actually, I mean, I don't know if it's the grittiness of it, the mid-fi production helping cover up some of the Vocaloid elements. Maybe it's just the slower performance of it. Maybe it's the vocals not being as prominent in the mix. Whatever happens, I never picked up on the fact that this wasn't a real vocalist. That is both surprising and startling. The other surprise is the trigger warning for this, I suppose. When I think of Hatsune Miku, I think of the pop star, not usually the Vocaloid, even though I understand she's still a Vocaloid in her pop star stuff, but it's not this. And people just use her software, her Vocaloid synth, to say the wildest stuff. The content warning, before we get into this, is suicide. Which I suppose I should have picked up on given the title of the track is Suicide Snowcide. There's not a lot to this. It is translated with Google Translate, so the grammar is awkward, but we'll get through this. You get the gist of it. Illuminating the sentimental memories of that time. Even if I look back and think it's too late, you jumped into the railroad crossing accident. You were smiling. I saw you. So we have somebody who may be a friend of our narrator, committed suicide by jumping into a train. The chorus says, stained red, it's about to stop. This chorus is going to get recontextualized next time around because verse 2 is about our narrator committing suicide. It says that the sunlight shines, the frost stings, and the cold wind calms my heart. I committed suicide by hanging myself. But back then, before, I was still laughing and ignorant. The chorus says stained red, it's about to stop. After the instrumental break, when we return back to the chorus, it simply ends with, yes, it's over. So we have two people who are, on the outside at least, enjoying life, laughing, playing. But in both of their lives, they found the need to end their life. The first had a smile on their face as they took their own life, and the other simply looked back at things, having a bit of sentimental memories, remembering times before. This doesn't go along at all with the optimism. Well, see, here's the thing. From their perspective, at least from the first verse's character, he had a smile on his face as he leapt in front of the train. He found a calm or a peace through that action. There is, I suppose, a reading of this track where the optimism that is felt in the music is one that is achieved through the taking of the life. It is an end to whatever depression or pain or sorrow or mental anguish that these people are in, presumably on a day-to-day basis. That for whatever reason, they find suicide to be a positive way out of this. That's the only way I can read the musical themes within the lyrical ones. Either way, whether there is a thematic synergy or not, I find this song to be rather tragic, which goes against the feelings that I felt while listening to the music. There's definitely a friction between my emotions listening to the music, and my emotions reading the lyrics. Also, what is it with Vocaloid producers? Maybe it's just the songs y'all give me. None of them seem to want to write about cheerful stuff. It's getting to the point where, like, oh, geez, if I'm given a black metal track, I'm like, well, here's for some nihilistic lyrics. And if I get given a Vocaloid track, I'm like, ah, oh, these lyrics are going to be heavy, huh? I don't understand the correlation there. Vocaloid music is generally very upbeat, energetic, cheery, positive, optimistic. I have not heard any negative, aggressive, overbearing Vocaloid music yet. There's plenty of room, y'all. I'm sure there's examples out there. I'm sure I'll hear them eventually. It's just such a division, though. Wild. Also, while I'm talking about this, I thought this was just like a spade, like on a playing card, but that's Miku in the album art, isn't it? Kind of clever with a lot of fuzz, visual fuzz, and two guitars. I mean, Miku on top of fuzzy guitars. If that isn't a really good, direct, kind of comical album art for Miku singing over shoegaze music, I don't know what is. This is gonna wrap it up. That's sometimes I wish we didn't do lyrical dives, that's for sure. That's gonna wrap it up for today. These are my thoughts on, again, I should have just known from the title though, honestly. Anyways, those are my thoughts on Robounoishi's Suicide Snowcide. Let me know what you thought of this track. If there's anything that stood out to you, anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on, maybe you have your own interpretation of things, let me know. Put all of that and any other thoughts you have down into the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And ring the bell. I don't know why my voice gave out. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.